bottle of Bull Run water. If you lived in Portland in the mid 1980s, you could go in a Safeway or a Fred Meyer or an Albertsons, and on the shelf, sitting next to Perrier water and other bottled waters, were cases of Bull Run water with a very fancy artistic label. So this was done as sort of a PR gimmick by Mayor Frank Ivensee, and they brought cases of this bottled water to the World's Fair in New Orleans in 1984. And I think primarily to attract business and industry to Portland, to brag about the quality of our water supply. It's well past its pull day, so if we're thirsty, I can't guarantee that this is safe to drink. It was bottled in 1983.
Does water expire?
They actually used to give this to all new employees. Got a bottle of Bull Run water and the book that I'm passing around. And after a certain point in time, they had a little label on this saying "not for human consumption." So I'll pass this around. I just need to get that back by the end of the day. So there you go.
I just don't.
So like a lot of jobs, you arrived at work in the morning and you never quite know what's going to happen. And so one of the most interesting days in my 30-year career was, so I'm sitting working at my desk and the phone rings, and it's a receptionist. And I was on their call list. If someone called and had a question about the Bull Run watershed, they would route it to me. So the phone rings and they said, "I'm forwarding someone who has a question." So I answer the phone and this guy says, "I've been doing a lot of research and I'm convinced that Bigfoot does exist, and if it does exist, it lives and it thrives in the Bull Run watershed. I would like permission to go look for Bigfoot, or otherwise known as Sasquatch." And I'm trying to be a very polite city employee and just say, "I'm sorry, we can't provide an entry pass for you to go look for Bigfoot." And he kept pushing back, saying, "I'm a registered civil engineer. I have a master's in engineering, and I'm not some bozo wasting your time. I've done exhaustive research, and I really feel that Bigfoot exists." And I'm still trying to be very diplomatic, but say no in a firm but polite way. Meanwhile, the person who was working in the office cube right next to mine is listening in, and she starts cracking up. And then so she starts drawing people over to my cube to also listen in the conversation. So pretty soon I have about 6 to 8 people overhearing my conversation with this guy who wants to go to the Bull Run to look for Sasquatch. So the next day she went to a children's toy store. She bought me a little stuffed Sasquatch doll, and I had that on my desk for the remaining decade or two that I worked. So you never know what kind of off-the-wall questions you're going to get when you work in a job like that. So we're driving through the city of Sandy now. The city of Sandy's water supply is a creek called Alder Creek. It's a surface water supply. We have been selling the city of Sandy water for about the last 4 or 5 years. Very small quantity, only like 1 million gallons per day. Let me back up and talk about the kind of the hydrology of the Bull Run. So in Portland, we get about 36, 37 inches of rain per year. In the Bull Run watershed, we get almost 4 times that amount. We get 135 inches of precipitation. 135 inches. So of that 135, we get 100 inches of runoff. That means that about 35 inches per year evaporates and is transpired by the vegetation. And of all that water, we only use 20%. So the 80% of the water that finds its way to streams and lakes and reservoirs, the bulk of that water just goes up and over the spillway and down the Bull Run River, into the Sandy, into the Columbia, and out to the ocean. We only use 20%. But that's not true. It's not a consistent 20% usage throughout the whole calendar year. During the summer months, we use the bulk of the stream flow that's entering the reservoirs. In the winter, we use maybe a small fraction that's coming down the rivers. But on an annual average basis, we only use 20% of the entire flow of the river. We have a legal water right to dry up the entire river and use every last drop. We have a legislatively granted water right. It was granted by the Oregon legislature in 1909. And when I first started in the mid-1980s, we literally dried up the river. I mean, we didn't leave a single drop for fish. And then we hired a fish biologist in the mid-1990s, and he said, sooner or later we're going to get sued by the Sierra Club and Northwest Steelheaders and other environmental groups because we're not providing a minimum stream flow below our diversion works. As a result, we've changed our practices and developed a 50-year habitat conservation plan specifically